What if the creatures of myth are more than just stories? What if they're mirrors of our own souls, reflecting the hidden struggles and strengths we all carry inside? Across cultures and centuries, humanity has dreamed up beings that blur the line between animal and human creatures with the wings of eagles, the strength of lions, or the wisdom of serpents. But these hybrids aren't just fantastical monsters. They're profound symbols embodying the dualities we all wrestle with: light and shadow, instinct and reason, fear and courage. Today, we're diving into 25 of these extraordinary beings, each one a doorway into understanding the complexities of what it means to be human. Think about the last time you felt torn between two choices, or when your heart and mind seemed locked in battle. That tension, that duality, is exactly what these mythical hybrids capture. From the Sphinx of ancient Egypt, who challenges travelers with riddles, to the fox spirits of East Asia, who shift between trickster and teacher, these beings aren't just relics of the past. They're timeless reminders of our own contradictions, our capacity for both destruction and creation. And here's the fascinating part: every culture, no matter how distant or different, has created these hybrid figures. Why? Because they speak to something universal in us all, a recognition that we're never just one thing, but a mosaic of instincts, emotions, and aspirations. So consider this a journey into the deepest corners of mythology and, in a way, into ourselves. Over the course of this exploration, you'll meet creatures that embody transformation, like the werewolf, whose story echoes our own fears of losing control. You'll encounter guardians of balance, like the centaur, half wild and half wise, showing us the dance between chaos and order. And you'll discover beings that defy simple labels, like the mermaid, whose allure whispers of the mysteries lurking beneath the surface of our own identities. By the end, you might just see these myths and yourself in a whole new light. So let's begin, because the most captivating stories aren't just about monsters. They're about us. Picture a centaur standing at the edge of a forest, muscular horse legs rooted in the earth, human torso reaching toward the sky. This is the essence of a hybrid being, a living paradox where two natures collide yet coexist. The centaur doesn't just blur the line between human and animal. It embodies the eternal struggle between our primal instincts and our higher reasoning. One moment, it's a wise teacher like Chiron guiding heroes in Greek myth. The next, it's a wild force lost to untamed desires. That duality is what makes these creatures so compelling. They're not monsters, they're mirrors. Take the Sphinx of Egypt with the body of a lion and the face of a human. It doesn't just guard the pyramids, it guards the boundary between the known and the unknown, challenging travelers with riddles that demand both logic and intuition to solve. Or consider the satyrs of Greek mythology, half goat and half man, dancing between chaos and creativity, reminding us that inspiration often springs from raw, unfiltered energy. These hybrids aren't accidents of imagination. They're deliberate symbols crafted by cultures across time to explore the tensions we all feel between discipline and passion, tradition and innovation, the self we show the world and the one we keep hidden. What's fascinating is how these beings refuse to fit neatly into categories. A mermaid isn't just a fish or a woman. She's the embodiment of longing, the pull between the safety of shore and the call of the unexplored depths. The Minotaur, trapped in his labyrinth, isn't merely a beast, he's the manifestation of isolation, the parts of ourselves we lock away out of shame or fear. Even the humble kitsune of Japanese folklore, a fox with the power to shift into human form, plays with the idea of identity itself. are they tricksters? Protectors, the answer is yes, because they, like us, contain multitudes. That's the real magic of these myths. They give form to the formless, turning inner conflicts into creatures we can name, wrestle with, and ultimately understand. When a hero faces a hybrid being in a story, they're not just battling a fantastical foe, they're confronting the unspoken parts of their own humanity. And that's why these legends endure. They remind us that to be human is to live in the space between animal and angel, shadow and light, the stories we tell and the truths we've yet to uncover. Carl Jung once wrote that myths are the language of the unconscious stories that give shape to the parts of ourselves we don't fully understand. And nowhere is that more evident than in the hybrid beings of legend. These creatures aren't just fantastical mashups, they're living embodiments of Jung's shadow self, the hidden aspects of our psyche we often ignore or suppress. Think of the Minotaur trapped in his labyrinth. That maze isn't just stone and darkness, it's a metaphor for the tangled corridors of our own minds, where primal instincts and repressed emotions lurk in the shadows. The hero who ventures in isn't just slaying a monster, they're facing the chaos within. This is why myths endure. They externalize the internal, turning abstract struggles into vivid, tangible forms. Take the werewolf, for example. Its transformation under the full moon isn't just a horror trope, it's a reflection of our fear of losing control, of the wildness that simmers beneath our civilized veneer. Or consider the Hindu deity Ganesha with his elephant head and human body. He's not just a symbol of wisdom, he's a reminder that intellect and instinct must coexist, that true understanding comes from embracing both. Joseph Campbell put it perfectly: myths are public dreams, dreams are private myths. These hybrid beings are our shared dreams, giving voice to the dualities we all grapple with: creativity and destruction, love and fear, the masks we wear and the truths we hide. So here's a question to ponder. Which of these mythical hybrids resonates with your unresolved tensions? Is it the siren, whose song pulls you between desire and duty, the phoenix, burning away the old to make room for the new, or perhaps the Japanese tengu, part human, part bird, balancing arrogance and enlightenment? Every culture's myths offer a mirror, and what we see in them says as much about us as it does about the stories. And that brings us to our first creature, a being that embodies the raw, untamed force of our primal instincts. Imagine a figure with the fierce majesty of a lion and the regal bearing of a king. This isn't just a guardian of sacred spaces, it's a test of what happens when power meets wisdom, when the animal within is neither conquered nor denied but integrated. Ready to meet the Sphinx, because some riddles aren't just meant to be solved, they're meant to reveal who we truly are. The Centaur stands as one of mythology's most striking paradoxes: human thought perched atop untamed strength, a living metaphor for the tension between our civilized minds and our wild hearts. On one hand, there's Chiron, the noble healer and mentor to heroes like Achilles, whose wisdom bridges the divine and mortal worlds. His very existence contradicts the stereotype of centaurs as unruly brutes, proving that duality isn't just about conflict, it's about integration. Yet contrast him with the centaurs of Thessaly, who lose themselves to revelry and violence, like in the story of Pholus and the wine jar. When these creatures catch the scent of sacred wine, their animal instincts erupt, sparking a battle that ends in tragedy. It's a cautionary tale about desire unchecked by reason. One sip of indulgence, and chaos follows. What makes the centaur so enduring isn't just its hybrid form, but what that form represents, the daily balancing act we all perform. Think about the modern equivalent: staying late at work versus answering your body's need for rest, or choosing between a moment of impulse and a long-term goal. The centaur's body is a map of this struggle, the human half reaching for the stars, the horse half rooted in earthly urges. Even Chiron, for all his wisdom, bears an incurable wound, a reminder that harmony isn't about erasing our instincts but learning to guide them. Now, imagine a creature where that balance tips towards something darker, where the animal isn't just restless but ravenous. Unlike the centaur, whose duality can be tempered, this next being embodies the lure of surrendering completely to the wild. Its myth whispers a warning: some hungers, once awakened, are hard to chain again. The Sphinx crouches at the crossroads of myth and meaning, her lion's body coiled with raw power, her human face etched with knowing calm. She isn't just a guardian of physical gates but of existential thresholds where strength meets wisdom and mortality meets the divine. Her most famous riddle, what walks on 4 legs at dawn, 2 at noon, and 3 at dusk, is no mere brain teaser. It's a mirror held up to the arc of human life, from crawling infancy to upright adulthood, then the frail dependence of old age. When Oedipus answers man, he doesn't just solve a puzzle, he names the paradox of self-awareness. We alone among creatures know our timeline, counting each sunrise with gratitude and dread. But the Sphinx's lesson runs deeper. Her hybrid form, part beast, part thinker, mirrors our own internal divide. The lion's body speaks to our animal instincts: survival, hunger, the pulse of blood and breath. The human head, that's our curse and gift, the ability to ponder, to fear, to wonder about our place in the grand scheme. Ancient Egyptians placed her at temple gates because she embodies the questions we must face before entering sacred spaces. Who are you? What have you learned? Can you accept the fleeting nature of your days? Modern anxieties echo hers. We obsess over productivity in our noon, dreading the dusk, filling calendars as if busyness could outrun time. The Sphinx whispers that true power lies not in defying mortality but in embracing its contours. Now, contrast this with another guardian, one who doesn't ask riddles but becomes the question. If the Sphinx represents the fear of time's passage, our next creature embodies the terror of losing control entirely. Imagine a being that doesn't stand at the threshold but is the threshold where humanity dissolves into something primal. The Sphinx challenges the mind. This next hybrid preys on the gut, the spine, the raw nerve of fear itself. Deep in the heart of Crete's labyrinth, the Minotaur waits, not just as a monster but as a mirror. Half man, half bull, he's the embodiment of rage forced into hiding, a creature born from a divine punishment gone horribly wrong. His very existence begins with duality, the result of Poseidon's curse on Queen Pasiphae, twisting desire into something monstrous. This isn't just a myth about a beast in a maze. It's a story about the shame we lock away, the parts of ourselves we deem too dangerous to face. The labyrinth isn't just his prison, it's a metaphor for the mental walls we build to contain our own chaos. When Theseus ventures into the darkness, sword in hand, he's not just slaying a monster, he's confronting the consequence of repression. Think about it, the Minotaur isn't inherently evil. He's a victim of circumstance, a child of cruelty and neglect, left to fester in isolation. His violence is the eruption of what happens when pain is denied a voice. And that's what makes this myth so hauntingly relatable. We all have our labyrinth secret chambers where we stash our anger, our insecurities, the traits we're told are too much or not enough. The Minotaur is what happens when those shadows grow unchecked. But here's the twist, the labyrinth is also a paradox. It's both trap and protection. Without it, the Minotaur's chaos would spill into the world unchecked. Yet within it, his suffering only deepens. This is the tragedy of duality at its sharpest, the way we're torn between exposing our wounds and fearing what might happen if we do. Modern therapy calls this shadow work. The ancients called it Theseus's quest. Both are about the same truth. We must face what we've buried, or it will consume us. Now, imagine a being that channels that same raw intensity, not into destruction, but creation. If the Minotaur is the embodiment of repressed fury, our next creature is the alchemist who transforms pain into something luminous. Where the labyrinth ends, artistry begins. A flame erupts in the darkness, not as an end, but as an invitation. The phoenix doesn't merely die in its own fire. It surrenders to the blaze with wings outstretched, knowing the ashes will birth something new. This is the paradox at its core, destruction as the ultimate act of trust. In Egyptian myth, the Bennu bird rises from the pyre of its predecessor, a solar symbol cycling through eternity. Chinese legends speak of the Fenghuang, whose vibrant plumage isn't just beauty, it's a tapestry of cosmic balance, yin and yang woven into every feather. Both versions whisper the same truth: endings aren't failures, they're portals. Alchemists called this process solve et coagulate, dissolve and reconstitute. It's the art of breaking down the old to purify the new, like gold refined in a crucible. Modern psychology echoes it when we speak of post-traumatic growth, that strange alchemy where loss becomes resilience. Think of forests after wildfires. The soil, scorched and barren, secretly primes itself for seeds that couldn't sprout in the shade of the old canopy. The phoenix teaches us that sometimes the very things we cling to, habits, relationships, even identities, need to combust so we can stretch into fuller versions of ourselves. So here's a question to carry with you. What in your life feels ready for the flames, not out of punishment but promise? Maybe it's a grudge that's grown too heavy, a dream that's outgrown its original shape, or a version of yourself you've outlived. The phoenix doesn't mourn its ashes, it soars on the thermals of its own transformation. Yet not all cycles of death and rebirth are so luminous. Imagine a creature that doesn't rise from fire, but from shadow, a being whose very existence blurs the line between living and gone. Where the phoenix is radiant renewal, this next hybrid lingers in the threshold, a whisper of what was and what might still be. The Chimera isn't just a monster, it's a walking nightmare stitched together from our deepest dreads. Lion, goat, serpent, each piece represents a different flavor of fear. The lion's roar echoes our terror of being overpowered. The goat's hollow eyes mirror the unease of isolation. The serpent's hiss carries the chill of betrayal. Together, they form something far worse than the sum of their parts. That's the cruel genius of this creature. It doesn't attack with one fear, but many at once, overwhelming its victims with a storm of fragmented anxieties. Bellerophon's battle with the Chimera is more than a hero's triumph. It's a masterclass in facing the things that paralyze us. With Pegasus as his guide, he doesn't fight the monster head-on. He rises above it, literally and metaphorically, seeing its pieces for what they are, separate fears masquerading as a single unstoppable force. Modern psychology calls this diffusion the act of pulling apart tangled thoughts to rob them of their power. Think of imposter syndrome, where self-doubt wraps itself in logic like the Chimera's serpent tail. You only succeeded because of luck. Everyone will find out you're a fraud. These aren't truths, they're mental monsters we've stitched together ourselves. So here's a challenge. Name your personal Chimera. What 3 fears coil together in your mind? Maybe it's failure, rejection, and time slipping away, a beast that whispers you'll never be enough. The key isn't to slay it in one blow, but to do what Bellerophon did, break it down. Fear of failure, that's the lion. Dread of loneliness, the goat. The gnawing sense that you're falling behind, that's the serpent. Tackle them one by one, and suddenly the monster feels smaller. Yet not all hybrids are born from fear. Some emerge from harmony, like the next creature we'll meet. a being woven from the rhythm of waves and the steadfastness of earth. Where the Chimera is a collision of terrors, this fusion is a dance of elements, proving that duality can be gentle too. The mermaid doesn't just swim in the ocean, she drifts in the space between worlds, a living contradiction of beauty and peril. With her hypnotic voice and shimmering tail, she embodies the ache of longing, the kind that pulls you towards something you can never truly have. Think of Hans Christian Andersen's heartbreaking tale, where the mermaid trades her voice for legs, every step on land as sharp as knives. It's not just a story about love, it's about the price of transformation, the agony of leaving oneself behind to become another. Her silence speaks volumes. What parts of ourselves do we mute to fit in, to be loved? And when the prince chooses another, the mermaid faces a final choice: kill him to reclaim her tail or dissolve into sea foam. She chooses the foam, a haunting reminder that some desires are meant to remain just out of reach. Now shift to the Celtic Selkie, a creature equally caught between realms. She glides through the waves as a seal but shed her skin, and she walks among humans, vulnerable and yearning. Here's the twist: if a man steals her sealskin, she's bound to him, a prisoner of domesticity. Yet the moment she finds her hidden skin, she's drawn back to the sea, no matter how much she may love the world above. This isn't just folklore, it's a mirror of our own dual identities. The Selkie's skin is her autonomy, the core of her true self. Lose it, and she's adrift in a life that isn't fully hers. Sound familiar? How many of us have tucked away pieces of ourselves to please others, only to feel the phantom pull of what we've lost? That's the mermaid's real magic and her danger. She doesn't just represent desire, she exposes the cost of chasing it. Sailors lured by her song aren't just entranced, they're ensnared, their ships dashed against rocks. It's a warning: some longings, no matter how beautiful, will drown you if you follow them blindly. Yet we can't help but lean over the railing, drawn to the shimmer just beneath the surface. Maybe that's why these hybrids endure. They don't offer answers, they reflect our own restless hearts, the parts of us that are always half in one world, half in another. Now imagine a being that doesn't linger between land and sea, but between life and death itself, a guardian of the ultimate threshold, where the rules of duality twist into something far stranger. At the gates of the underworld, where shadows cling like wet silk, Cerberus stands watch, not just with one set of jaws but three. This isn't just a monster, it's a living boundary, a creature whose very existence asks, are you keeping something out or locking something in? His three heads symbolize past, present, and future, the totality of time that even the dead cannot escape. Yet for all his ferocity, Cerberus isn't mindless. He's Hades' most loyal servant, a guardian who understands that some doors must remain shut. The ancient Greeks didn't fear him because he was evil, they feared him because he was necessary. Chaos must be contained or it consumes everything. Now consider how this plays out in our world. Modern borders, whether physical or social, function much like Cerberus's gate. Passports, security checkpoints, even the unspoken rules of who belongs in certain spaces, they are all about control. But here's the tension: gatekeeping can protect, but it can also imprison. A wall keeps invaders out, but it also cages those inside. Social hierarchies act the same way, deciding who gets access to power, resources, or even basic respect. The three-headed hound makes us ask, when does vigilance become tyranny? When does safety become suffocation? Hercules' encounter with Cerberus in his 12th labor reveals another layer. He doesn't slay the beast, he subdues it with sheer strength, then returns it unharmed. It's a rare moment in myth where the monster isn't conquered but negotiated with. That's the secret wisdom here. Fear itself isn't the enemy. it's how we engage with it. Hercules doesn't destroy the guardian of the underworld. He respects its role, even as he temporarily bends it to his will. In a world obsessed with winning, this myth whispers that some forces aren't meant to be defeated, only understood. Yet not all thresholds are so stark. Beyond the underworld's gloom, another hybrid waits, one not of teeth and terror, but of feathers and flame. Where Cerberus guards the door to death, this celestial being lights the path to transformation. The boundary it watches over isn't stone or shadow, but the shimmering line between earth and sky. Pegasus isn't just a winged horse, he's the living breath of contradiction, hooves planted firmly on earth while his feathers brush the clouds. This isn't flight for spectacle, it's flight as metaphor, the tension between where we stand and where we yearn to be. In Greek myth, he springs from Medusa's blood, a creature born of violence yet destined for transcendence. Poets would later call him the muse's steed, the spark that carries inspiration from the divine to the mortal page. But here's the twist: Pegasus doesn't just represent aspiration, he warns of its peril. When Bellerophon, his rider, grows drunk on glory and attempts to storm Olympus itself, the horse bucks him midair, sending the hero crashing back to earth. It's a stark lesson. Ambition without humility is a fall waiting to happen. Compare this to Icarus, whose wax wings melt under the sun's glare. Both stories speak of overreach, but Pegasus endures where Icarus plummets. Why? Because the winged horse isn't just a tool for ascent, he's a partner. His very existence suggests that true elevation requires harmony between drive and restraint, between dreaming and doing. Even his origins hint at this balance. Born from death, Medusa's severed head, yet touching the divine, his name means spring from the sea, linking him to creation itself. Artists and writers still invoke Pegasus not because he guarantees success, but because he embodies the delicate dance of striving without losing oneself. So let's make this personal. What's your Pegasus, the passion project that makes your pulse quicken? The quiet ambition you're afraid to voice? Maybe it's not a grand career leap, but the simple act of writing that poem, planting that garden, or learning that instrument, the thing that lifts you without demanding you abandon who you are. Pegasus reminds us that wings are only as strong as the grounded heart that guides them. Yet not all airborne hybrids offer such grace. Imagine a creature with feathers but no kindness, a being whose flight doesn't inspire but terrify. Where Pegasus bridges earth and sky, this next hunter rules the winds with talons bared, turning the heavens into a realm of teeth and hunger. The Harpy doesn't just descend from the sky, she is the storm, her wings beating like thunderclaps, her talons sharp as lightning. These half-woman, half-bird creatures of Greek myth aren't mere monsters. They're the embodiment of sudden, merciless disruption. Picture this: you're sailing calm waters when the air turns thick with the stench of rotting flesh. The Harpies have arrived, snatching food from your hands, leaving only filth in their wake. They're not random agents of chaos, though. These are Zeus's enforcers, dispatched to punish those who defy divine order. Take King Phineus, cursed with endless banquets that Harpies would violently steal, a torment for his misuse of prophecy. Here's the paradox: their brutality serves justice, blurring the line between cruelty and cosmic balance. Now, fast forward to modern language. Call someone a Harpy, and it's not about storms or gods. It's a gendered insult, painting women as shrill, grasping, monstrous. That linguistic shift reveals how mythic labels linger, warping over time to reflect societal fears. The Harpy's talons aren't just physical, they're cultural, clawing at perceptions of female anger and power. But peel back those layers and you'll find something achingly human beneath the feathers. Harpies embody guilt's sudden swoop, the way regret can rip through your peace like talons through parchment. When has your mind replayed a mistake on loop, snatching sleep like Phineas's stolen meals? Yet for all their ferocity, harpies share the sky with another hybrid, one not of punishment but profound wisdom. Where they bring storms, this next creature carries the clarity of still waters, proving that duality isn't always a battle. Sometimes it's a dance. The Kraken doesn't just dwell in the ocean's depths, it is the depth itself, a creature so vast it blurs the line between monster and force of nature. Ancient Norse sailors spun tales of tentacles longer than ship masts, rising without warning to drag men into the abyss. But this isn't just a story about a giant squid. The Kraken is the subconscious made flesh, the embodiment of everything that lurks beneath the surface of our control. Think of the Leviathan from Hebrew scripture, another sea beast of incomprehensible scale, symbolizing chaos that even God must subdue. These myths aren't about sea life, they're about the human mind's terror of the uncontrollable, the sudden upheavals that swallow our plans whole. Modern deep-sea discoveries add eerie resonance to these legends. The colossal squid with eyes the size of dinner plates, or the anglerfish's bioluminescent lure in the midnight zone, real creatures that seem ripped from nightmare. Yet even they pale next to the Kraken's mythic grandeur. Why? Because science can measure tentacles, but it can't quantify dread. The Kraken thrives where light fails, in the mental trenches where we stash our fears of collapse, climate disasters, pandemics, financial ruin. Its eruptions mirror our own suppressed anxieties bursting into the open, capsizing the fragile boats of our routines. Here's the chilling twist: the Kraken isn't evil. It simply is indifferent to human constructs of order. When it surfaces, it doesn't hate, it hungers. That's what makes it so unsettling. You can't reason with a force of nature, just as you can't negotiate with a panic attack or a hurricane. The Kraken's lesson isn't about defeating chaos but navigating it, learning, like seasoned sailors, to read the water for telltale ripples of upheaval. Now shift from the ocean's crushing pressure to a landscape just as merciless, the desert, where the Kraken embodies the fear of what surges from below. Our next hybrid thrives in absence, a creature forged not by water's weight, but by thirst's sharp edge. The desert, after all, is its own kind of abyss. The siren's call isn't just a song, it's the sound of longing amplified to lethal perfection. These half-bird, half-woman creatures of Greek myth don't lure sailors with mere beauty. They offer the one thing every human craves, the illusion of being truly known. Their melodies whisper secrets, promising answers to unspoken questions, desires so deep we barely admit them to ourselves. That's why their cliffs are littered with skeletons. It's not the music that kills, it's the unbearable weight of hope. Odysseus's solution, binding himself to the mast while his crew plugs their ears with wax, is a masterclass in resistance. He acknowledges the pull but refuses to surrender, letting the song wash over him without drowning in it. It's the ancient equivalent of a modern detox, creating barriers between yourself and temptation. But contrast this with Orpheus, who doesn't block the siren's song, he drowns it out. When his lyre's notes rise above their voices, he proves that some cravings can't just be resisted, they must be replaced by something stronger. Here's the question: which strategy speaks to you, the rigid discipline of Odysseus or the creative sublimation of Orpheus? Fast forward to today, and the sirens haven't vanished, they've shapeshifted. Endless scrolling, the ping of notifications, the dopamine rush of just one more. These are the modern melodies that promise fulfillment but strand us on rocky shores. The siren myth endures because it's not about mythical creatures. It's about the parts of ourselves that would rather chase illusions than face the quiet work of building real meaning. Yet there's another layer to their danger. Sirens don't just represent temptation, they embody the paradox of beauty intertwined with decay. Their voices are celestial, but their island is a graveyard. Which brings us to a creature even more unsettling, one whose allure isn't in song, but in the slow, seductive unraveling of time itself. Medusa's story begins not with monstrosity, but with violation, a priestess of Athena, punished for the crime of being desired. When Poseidon assaults her in the goddess's temple, Athena's response is to twist Medusa's beauty into a weapon, replacing her hair with serpents and her gaze with petrification. Here's the cruel irony: her trauma becomes her armor. The very thing that marked her as a victim now makes her untouchable. One look and men freeze mid-stride, their faces locked in expressions of shock, their bodies monuments to their own hubris. But the Gorgon isn't just a cautionary tale about the dangers of lust or divine wrath. She's a mirror reflecting how trauma can calcify us, turning pain into a fortress where nothing and no one gets close enough to hurt us again. Fast forward to modern retellings, and Medusa's snakeless face stares back from feminist art and protest signs. She's been reclaimed as a symbol of survival, her monstrous visage reframed as defiance. Think of the viral #2 Medusa tattoos ink as armor, just like her serpent crown, or Margaret Atwood's famous line, "Men are afraid women will laugh at them. Women are afraid men will kill them." Medusa's gaze, once a curse, now becomes a metaphor for the paralyzing weight of patriarchal fear. When a woman's anger is so often dismissed as hysteria, there's power in a myth where rage literally turns oppressors to stone. Now consider your own petrifying moments. What fears or wounds have left you frozen, not in stone, but in patterns that keep you stuck? Maybe it's a betrayal that made you vow never to trust again, or a failure that convinced you to stop taking risks. Medusa's tragedy isn't just her transformation, it's the isolation that follows. The paradox: her power isolates her as much as it protects, yet not all transformations are born from punishment. Imagine a being who wields metamorphosis not as a shield but as a language, a creature fluent in the art of becoming. Where Medusa's change was forced upon her, this next hybrid dances between forms by choice, rewriting identity with every flick of its tail. The full moon rises, and with it comes the howl, not just of a beast but of something far more unsettling, the human voice breaking into snarls and growls. The werewolf isn't just a monster, it's a walking contradiction where civilized restraint tears at the seams to reveal the raw pulse of instinct beneath. European folklore paints lycanthropy as a curse, a punishment for sin, or a bite that spreads like disease. Picture the medieval townsfolk barring their doors, whispering of neighbors who vanish into the woods at night, returning with blood on their hands and no memory of the hunt. It's a horror story, yes, but also a confession. We fear the beast within because we know it's real. Now, shift the lens to Navajo skinwalkers, shapeshifters who don the pelts of wolves not by accident but by choice. Here, transformation isn't a loss of control, it's a deliberate harnessing of power, a sacred and terrifying exchange. The skinwalker blurs the line between human and animal, not through weakness but through will. This contrast is revelatory. One tradition sees the hybrid as a victim, the other as a wielder of forbidden knowledge. Both, however, circle the same truth: the boundary between human and beast is thinner than we pretend. Consider the moon's role in these myths, its pull not just on tides but on tempers. Ancient healers timed surgeries by its phases, believing blood flowed faster under its glow. Modern studies even suggest sleep disturbances peak during full moons. Coincidence? Maybe. But the werewolf myth endures because it gives shape to those nights when our emotions feel lunar-led, when anger flares hotter or loneliness cuts deeper for no reason we can name. Ever snapped at a loved one and thought, where did that come from? That's the werewolf's whisper, the parts of us that operate beyond logic's leash. Yet there's another layer to this duality. Some legends speak of werewolves who remember their hunts, who relish the chase. This isn't just about losing control, it's about the seduction of surrendering to it. Think of the rush of shouting in an empty car, the primal thrill of tearing into rare meat, the freedom of dancing without caring who watches. The werewolf's curse mirrors our own tension between wanting to be good and aching to be alive, consequences be damned. So here's the question lurking under the fur and fangs. What's your moon-touched moment? The time you shocked yourself with your own ferocity, or the time you craved the wildness society told you to suppress? The werewolf doesn't just represent fear, it's a foil for our fascination with the untamed. And that fascination hints at something deeper, a lineage far older than folklore. What if the wolf isn't just a metaphor, but a memory? Some indigenous creation stories speak of a time when humans and animals spoke the same language, when transformation wasn't monstrous but sacred. The werewolf's blood moon eyes might just be reflecting a truth we've tried to forget. We've always been hybrids, straddling the line between earth and instinct, heaven and hunger. Now, imagine a creature that embodies not the struggle between human and beast, but the harmony, a divine hybrid whose very existence whispers that these dualities were never meant to be torn apart. With wings that blot out the sun and talons forged in divine fire, the Garuda isn't just a creature of myth. He's a storm of contradictions, part golden eagle, part man. This Hindu deity serves as Lord Vishnu's mount, yet his story begins not in reverence but in rage. Born to free his enslaved mother from the serpentine Nagas, Garuda's quest is a blaze of vengeance tempered by devotion. Picture this. He tears through the heavens, stealing the nectar of immortality from the gods themselves, not for power, but to bargain for his mother's release. It's a paradox, a being of unmatched ferocity, wielding violence solely for love's sake. The Nagas, his eternal adversaries, slither on the other side of this cosmic balance. Serpents coiled in shadow, they represent chaos, the untamed forces that ripple beneath creation's surface. Their venom can kill, but it also heals. Their bodies are legless, yet they navigate both earth and water with eerie grace. Garuda's battles with them aren't just clashes of strength, they're the dance of opposites, sunlight against midnight, order against entropy. Hindu art often shows Vishnu reclining on the coiled body of the Naga king Shesha, while Garuda perches nearby. Even in stillness, the message is clear. These opposites don't destroy each other, they complete each other. Now, zoom out to the broader pattern. Day needs night. Fire needs water. Even the gods rely on their so-called enemies. After all, without the Naga's venom, Garuda's heroism would have no purpose. This tension isn't unique to Hinduism. Think of Norse mythology's eagle and serpent locked in endless battle across Yggdrasil's branches, or the Chinese yin-yang, where the dark swirl cradles a seed of light. The lesson isn't that one force must conquer the other, but that existence thrives on their push and pull. Yet not all dualities are so solemn. Some thrive on laughter, on the sly wink that upends expectations. If Garuda and the Nagas embody cosmic balance, the trickster is the stick that pokes the scales, sending them wobbling. And no creature dances on that edge quite like the next hybrid. We'll meet a shapeshifter who proves that chaos isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's the spark that shakes the world awake, a whisper in the bamboo grove, a flicker of firelight where no flame should burn. This is the kitsune's calling card. More than just a fox-spirited trickster of Japanese folklore, these shapeshifters embody a paradox. Their deception often reveals deeper truths than honesty ever could. With each of their 9 tails representing a century of wisdom, kitsune blur the line between predator and protector. One moment, they might lead travelers astray with phantom lanterns. The next, they're guarding shrines as messengers of Inari, the rice god. Their very existence asks a provocative question. Is manipulation always malicious, or can it sometimes be a mirror? Consider the tales of kitsune brides foxes who take human form to marry unsuspecting men. In one story, a farmer wakes to find his wife mid-transformation, her kimono slipping to reveal a brushstroke of red fur. But here's the twist, many of these unions aren't predatory. The kitsune often genuinely loves her husband, weeping real tears when discovered. These legends aren't just about fear of the unknown, they're about the vulnerability of trust. What does it mean to love someone whose true nature you'll never fully grasp? The kitsune's duality resonates today, where online avatars and curated social media selves make us all shape-shifters to some degree. When you've ever softened edges or highlighted certain traits to fit in, you've danced the kitsune's dance, yet their tricks carry purpose. In the famous Kuzunoha legend, a fox saves a nobleman's life by becoming his wife, bearing him a gifted child before leaving to preserve her secret. Before departing, she writes a poem in the dew. If you love me, darling, come seek me. I wait where the kuzu vines twine. Her deception wasn't cruelty, it was sacrifice. She gave her human family both love and the freedom to thrive without the burden of her truth. Modern parallels abound. The parent who hides illness to spare their child worry. The immigrant who downplays homesickness to build a new life. Sometimes masks aren't lies, they're bridges, which brings us to the kitsune's most potent lesson. Fluidity isn't the opposite of authenticity. In a world obsessed with being real, these spirits remind us that identity isn't static. A fox might be a mischievous pup at 100 years old, a wise counselor at 500, and a celestial being at 1,000, all while remaining fundamentally itself. That's why kitsune resonate in an era of gender fluidity and cultural hybridity. They model the courage to hold multitudes, fierce and gentle, wild and domestic, seen and unseen. So here's an invitation. Reflect on a time when a white lie or half-truth served something greater than blunt honesty. Maybe it was sparing a friend's feelings or protecting a fragile hope. The kitsune challenges our knee-jerk scorn for deception, suggesting that some truths are too bright to bear without shadows. But not all hybrids navigate shadows with such grace. Beyond the foxfire's glow waits a far darker guide, one who doesn't just flirt with deception but commands the very gates between worlds. Where the kitsune dances with masks, this next being wears death's face openly. Anubis stands at the threshold of life and death, his jackal ears pricked toward whispers of the departed. More than just an Egyptian god of the dead, he's the embodiment of a paradox. How can something as final as death also be a gateway? With his obsidian black fur and golden scales, he doesn't just usher souls to the afterlife, he holds space for their most vulnerable moment, the weighing of the heart. Picture this, a feather on one side of the scale, light as a breath, and on the other, the heart of the deceased. If it balances, the soul ascends. If it's heavy with deceit or cruelty, Ammit the devourer waits. But here's what's often overlooked. Anubis isn't just a judge. He's a guide. His hands, steady and sure, perform the very first mummification on Osiris, stitching dignity back into broken flesh. This act isn't about denying decay. It's about honoring the tension between what we lose and what endures. Fast forward to today's death positivity movement, where morticians like Caitlin Doughty advocate for reclaiming mortality's rituals. Just as Anubis turned mummification into sacred art, modern death doulas help families wash loved ones' bodies, proving that tenderness can coexist with decay. The scales haven't vanished, they've just shifted form. Now we weigh hospice against heroic measures, legacy against letting go. Anubis's question lingers: what makes a heart light enough to move forward? Is it unspoken apologies, unfinished dreams? The modern answer might surprise you. Research shows those nearing death often speak not of regrets for risks taken, but for chances not seized. The heaviness isn't in failure, it's in unfelt joy. Now, shift from the desert's dry embrace to a realm where decay births life anew. If Anubis guards the boundary between life and death, the next hybrid watches over the threshold between rot and rebirth, a creature whose antlers twist skyward like bare branches, crowned with the promise of regrowth. The Green Man watches from the stone arches of cathedrals and the carved lintels of ancient pubs, his face a tangle of vines, his mouth a silent shout of leaves. More than just a decorative motif, he's the earth's exhale given form, a reminder that life and decay are two sides of the same leaf. Medieval stonemasons tucked him into sacred spaces not as pagan defiance, but as a whispered truth. Even in the house of God, nature's cycles cannot be ignored. His foliage isn't static. It curls and withers in perpetual motion, buds erupting from the corners of his eyes like tears of renewal. This isn't just art, it's an ancient meditation on the duality of existence. The same roots that feed the oak also break the tomb. Modern environmental movements echo this symbiosis. Think of composting, where coffee grounds and apple cores don't just rot, they transform into black gold, fueling new growth. Or consider controlled forest fires, where flames don't just destroy but clear space for sequoia seeds to crack open. The Green Man's lesson is stark. There's no creation without destruction, no spring without winter. Personal growth follows the same rhythm. Ever noticed how the most transformative periods of your life often follow a loss, a job, a relationship, an identity? Like the forest floor after a storm, what feels like ruin is often just the universe making room. So here's an invitation. What's your current season? Maybe you're in the thick summer of productivity, leaves wide to the sun. Or perhaps you're in autumn's release, shedding roles that no longer fit. Some viewers might be deep in winter's stillness, where everything feels barren, but remember, even frozen soil hides mycelial networks, quietly preparing for the next bloom. The Green Man doesn't judge these phases, he embodies them all. His vines snake through time, linking the monk's cloister to the climate activist's protest sign. Both are tending the same truth. Growth isn't linear. It's a spiral, returning to familiar lessons with deeper understanding. Yet for all his tranquility, the Green Man has a counterpart, a being not of patient tendrils but of cleansing flame. If he represents the slow wisdom of roots, the next creature we'll meet is the spark that makes renewal possible through fire. Because sometimes the only way to grow is to burn. The salamander doesn't simply endure fire, it dances in it, its slick skin glistening amid the flames as if woven from the very embers it claims to command. Medieval bestiaries spun wild tales of these creatures crawling unscathed from hearths, their bodies so cold they extinguished coals on contact. Alchemists revered them as symbols of purity, their ability to withstand heat mirroring the philosopher's stone's power to transmute base metals into gold. Yet beneath this mystique lurked a darker duality. Their saliva was said to be lethally toxic, a paradox of healing and harm. The same creature that symbolized rebirth could also kill with a single drop. This tension between destruction and renewal pulses through the salamander's myths. Consider the trial by fire motif. Think of Joan of Arc's pyre or the phoenix's ashes. Fire isn't just punishment, it's purification. The salamander embodies this alchemical truth. Transformation demands confrontation with what burns us. Modern science even echoes this metaphor. Certain bacteria thrive in volcanic vents, and the tardigrade survives the vacuum of space. Life, it seems, insists on flourishing in the unlikeliest infernos. But the salamander's lore takes an even stranger turn. Some Renaissance texts claimed they were born from fire itself, celestial messengers bridging earth and heaven. Picture a scribe's marginalia, a tiny amphibian wreathed in flames, perched on the edge of a saint's vision. Here, the salamander shifts from earthly oddity to divine intermediary, its flickering form a reminder that even the most grounded beings carry sparks of the sublime. Now imagine a creature not of earthly flames but of cosmic fire, a being whose wings scatter embers across the night sky. Where the salamander navigates mere mortal fires, this next hybrid rides the solar winds, a herald not of trials but of destiny itself. The thunderbird doesn't just fly, it unleashes the sky itself. With wings that stretch from horizon to horizon, this colossal being of indigenous legend isn't merely a creature, it's the living embodiment of nature's dual temperament. In one breath, its feathers stir hurricanes, cracking the air with thunderclaps. In the next, it swoops low to shield villages from floods, its talons gentle as it lifts children from danger. The Ojibwe speak of it as a messenger of the Great Spirit, while the Kwakwaka'wakwa carve its likeness into totem poles as a guardian of moral order. This isn't just a myth about weather, it's a lesson in paradox. How can something so terrifying also be so merciful? Picture a storm rolling across the plains. Lightning splits the sky, and the earth trembles under torrents of rain. But when the clouds part, the air is clearer, the rivers fuller, the soil richer. The thunderbird's fury isn't random destruction, it's a reset, a violent act of renewal. Its thunder isn't just noise, it's the sound of imbalance being corrected. Modern life mirrors this duality. Think of the layoff that forces someone to pursue their true passion, or the heartbreak that cracks open a deeper capacity for love. Sometimes the most transformative moments arrive not as whispers but as quakes. Now turn the lens inward. When has a personal storm, a loss, a failure, a seismic shift, cleared debris you didn't even know was blocking your path? The Thunderbird's myth suggests that upheaval and protection aren't opposites, they're partners in the dance of growth. It's no coincidence that many indigenous traditions depict this being with eyes that flash like lightning, a reminder that insight often comes in flashes, jagged and bright. Yet for all its might, the Thunderbird shares the skies with a quieter shapeshifter, one who doesn't command the storm, but becomes the water itself. Where the Thunderbird's wings shake the heavens, this next being flows through boundaries, proving that power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the whisper of a river carving stone. The Selkie's skin isn't just a pelt, it's her soul folded into supple leather, a second self she shrugs off to dance on moonlit shores. But when a fisherman steals that skin, hiding it in a chest or nailing it to a barn wall, her freedom becomes a locked door. Forced into a human marriage, she may bear children, tend hearths, even grow to love her captor in quiet, complicated ways. Yet every night, her dreams pull her back to the sea's embrace, where the waves murmur her true name. These Celtic seal women aren't just mythical creatures, they're mirrors of autonomy's fragile dance, how love can be both anchor and chain. Consider the haunting ballad of the great Selkie of Sewell Skerry, where a Selkie man reclaims his stolen human son, prophesying the boy's eventual return to the ocean. The human mother's grief is palpable, but so is the Selkie's resolve. Some bonds can't be forced. Fast forward to modern conversations about consent and the parallel sting. A partner who isolates you from friends, a parent who dictates life choices for your own good. These aren't acts of love, but possession wrapped in pretty lies. The Selkie's skin is her no, her this is not negotiable. When it's taken, her yes means nothing. Yet the stories hold a deeper tension. Some Selkie wives don't rage. They adapt, weaving their wildness into domesticity, teaching their children the language of seals. Here, duality softens, love and loss braided together like kelp on the tide. Psychologists call this ambiguous loss, the grief for someone still physically present but emotionally gone. The Selkie's human family may adore her, but part of her is always elsewhere, a shadow self yearning for the waves. How many of us have felt that split, duty tugging one way, desire another? Now shift from the salt-stung shores to a different kind of illusion. If the Selkie's stolen skin represents love's captivity, the desert mirage embodies longing's cruel tease, a shimmering promise that dissolves the closer you get. Both are reflections of human hunger, one for connection, the other for survival. But where the Selkie's truth waits in a hidden pelt, the mirage offers only thirst and empty hands. The djinn doesn't just grant wishes, it unravels them, its smoke-coiled fingers tracing the fault lines between what we ask for and what we truly deserve. Born from scorching winds and fireless flame, these beings of Arabian lore are neither demons nor angels, but something far more unsettling, mirrors of human ambition's blind spots. Think of Aladdin's genie, all booming laughter and blue whimsy, until you notice how his magic often exacerbates the very flaws it's meant to fix. A pauper showered in gold becomes a target for thieves. A prince's palace lifted into the sky isolates him from his people. The djinn's power lies not in its ability to fulfill desires, but to reveal their hidden costs. This isn't just fantasy. The Faustian bargain echoes through history, from Gothe's tragic scholar trading his soul for knowledge to modern tech bros chasing disruption without considering the rubble left behind. Every move fast and break things ethos carries a whiff of djinn magic, the intoxicating promise of shortcuts minus the fine print. Even psychology nods to this dynamic. Studies on the hedonic treadmill show how lottery winners often return to baseline happiness, while sudden fame can corrode relationships. The djinn's lesson is ancient but urgent. Transformation without integration is just a prettier form of self-sabotage. Yet the djinn's duality runs deeper. In Sufi tradition, some djinn are seekers of divine truth, their smokeless fire symbolizing the soul's yearning for enlightenment. Here, the twist isn't ironic punishment but earned wisdom. To wrestle with a djinn is to confront the shadow side of one's own aspirations, the unspoken fears that tether us even as we reach for the stars. It's no accident that djinn feature prominently in the Quran's Solomon narratives, where the wise king commands them not for personal gain, but to build a temple meant for all. Power, these stories whisper, is safest in hands that understand its weight. So here's a challenge. If a djinn offered you one wish, what loophole would you dread most? The promotion that costs your health, the perfect partner who stifles your growth, the immortality that outlasts everyone you love. These aren't hypotheticals, they're the silent trade-offs woven into every choice. The djinn's true magic isn't in its flames, but in the clarity they cast on our own smoldering contradictions. And that brings us to the threshold of our final hybrid, one who doesn't twist desires but transcends them entirely. Where the djinn is smoke and mirrors, this last being is pure light, a fusion so flawless it reveals the ultimate truth. Duality isn't a battle to win, but a harmony to embody. The Quetzalcoatl doesn't slither. He ascends, his emerald feathers catching the dawn light as his serpentine body coils through the clouds. This isn't just a deity of Aztec myth. He's a living bridge between the dirt under your nails and the stars you can't reach. Half rattlesnake, half resplendent Quetzal bird, he embodies the most human of struggles, how to root yourself in the earth while stretching toward the divine. His name literally means precious serpent, and not for his gold or jewels, but for the wisdom woven into his scales. And here's the twist. This god of wind and learning didn't just teach enlightenment, he bled for it. Legend says Quetzalcoatl journeyed to the underworld to gather the bones of past civilizations, grinding them into dust and mixing them with his own blood to create humanity. Think about that. The act of creation wasn't a command or a whisper. It was a sacrifice, a god pouring his essence into flawed vessels so they might reach. Modern artists echo this in their struggles: the late-night paintings, the rejected manuscripts, the silent sacrifices made to birth something meaningful. But Quetzalcoatl's duality goes deeper. As the morning star, he's Venus at dawn, light-piercing darkness. As the evening star, he's that same planet at dusk, a reminder that wisdom fades if not tended. The serpent sheds its skin, the bird molts its feathers. Enlightenment isn't a destination, it's a cycle. Now, fast forward to today's world, where we're all trying to balance ideals with reality. The activist who dreams of justice but battles burnout. The parent who juggles bills and bedtime stories, their aspirations simmering beneath daily demands. Quetzalcoatl's question lingers: how do you keep your feathers clean when life keeps dragging you through the mud? Maybe it's in small acts: the teacher who stays late to tutor, the neighbor who shares groceries despite their own lack. These aren't grand sacrifices, but they're sacred nonetheless. Contemporary artists have reclaimed Quetzalcoatl as a symbol of resistance, his feathered coils gracing murals in Mexican-American neighborhoods, whispering of roots that can't be severed. Scientists even named a pterosaur after him, Quetzalcoatlus northropi, a creature whose wingspan rivaled small planes. The message, bridging earth and sky, isn't just mythic. It's biological, cultural, possible. Yet for all his nobility, Quetzalcoatl has a shadow. His rival Tezcatlipoca tricks him into drunkenness, exposing his fallibility. Even gods, it seems, stumble. That's the final lesson. Enlightenment isn't about perfection. It's about the grit to rise again, scales scratched but still gleaming, wings battered but still spread. Now imagine a being who doesn't bridge earth and sky, but time itself, a hybrid not of serpent and bird, but of past and future. Where Quetzalcoatl embodies aspiration, this next creature lingers in the in-between, a whisper that some thresholds aren't meant to be crossed, only witnessed. The cyborg wasn't born in a lab, it was dreamed into existence centuries ago, hidden in the grooves of ancient myths. From Hephaestus crafting golden automata to the golem of Jewish folklore, humanity has always wrestled with the line between creator and creation. But today, that line isn't just blurred, it's vanishing. Prosthetics controlled by neural impulses, AI composing symphonies, chatbots mirroring human grief. We're living the myths we once told by firelight. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's the quiet hum of your smartphone learning your habits before you do. The modern hybrid isn't half lion or half bird. It's half flesh, half algorithm, a fusion more unsettling because it's real. Consider the paradox of a soldier with a bionic limb. The same technology that restores their ability to walk also tracks their biometrics, turning the body into data. Or take the grandmother in Tokyo chatting with a holographic companion programmed to mimic her late husband's laugh. These aren't dystopian tropes, they're tender, messy realities where loss and innovation clasp hands. The mythic fear of losing one's humanity to artifice pulses beneath these stories like an old wound. Recall Talos, the bronze giant of Crete, whose molten core was both his power and his downfall. Our prototypes carry the same tension. Alexa can't love you, but it can learn to say, "I care," in just the right cadence. Yet for all the nightmares of silicon replacing soul, there's luminous potential too. A deaf child hearing their mother's voice through cochlear implants isn't losing humanity. they're reclaiming it. AI diagnosing rare diseases from patterns no human eye could catch doesn't erase doctors, it extends their reach. The ancient Chimera was a warning, but the modern cyborg might be a prayer. What if merging with machines isn't about becoming less human, but more? Indigenous futurists already frame this beautifully, imagining robots woven with sweetgrass circuits, where tech honors ecology rather than conquering it. Here's where mythology's wisdom prickles the back of our necks. The Minotaur's labyrinth mirrors our fear of being trapped in code. The Phoenix's rebirth hints at AI's power to resurrect lost voices from digital ashes. Even the kitsune's many-tailed metamorphosis finds new life in deep-fake avatars shifting shape online. The old stories prepared us for this moment, not with answers, but with the right questions. When a chatbot's condolence brings real tears, is that connection or manipulation? If your memories are uploaded to a cloud, who owns the ghost in that machine? So let's turn the mirror forward. Picture a not-so-distant future where neural lace lets you taste a sunset or text with your thoughts. Will that feel like evolution or erasure? The answer might lie in the myths we've carried all along. The best hybrid Centaur, Garuda, Selkie weren't monsters. They were teachers, showing that duality isn't a flaw to fix but a frontier to explore. Maybe our silicon successors will echo that truth, not replacing the human heart but amplifying its beat in ways we're only beginning to imagine. Now, imagine a being that doesn't blend flesh and metal but thought and dream, a hybrid not of body but of consciousness itself. Where the cyborg walks the physical threshold, this next creature dances in the synaptic gaps, proving that the most profound mergers happen not in labs, but in the labyrinth of the mind. Every myth we've explored whispers the same truth. Duality isn't a flaw, it's your superpower. Those contradictions you wrestle with, the way your heart craves adventure while your mind clings to stability. The artist who lives in your right hand and the engineer who thrives in your left, that's not chaos, that's your inner hybrid awakening. Think of the Japanese kitsune, weaving between fox and human form, or Anubis balancing scales between life and death. You're no different. Your opposing traits aren't enemies, they're collaborators in the masterpiece that is you. Try this, grab a journal and sketch your personal mythology. Draw yourself as a mythical hybrid, maybe an owl for wisdom, octopus arms for adaptability, or dragon wings for untapped courage. Label each trait without judgment. That spreadsheet-loving side, call it your centaur's discipline. The daydreamer who gets lost in music, your Selkie's soul. Poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "Perhaps all dragons in our lives are princesses waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage." What if your flaws are just undiscovered strengths in disguise? That temper you suppress might be a phoenix's fire waiting to ignite change, the anxiety that haunts you. A Garuda's keen sight, sensing dangers others miss. Now, step deeper. Myths aren't static, they evolve with us. The werewolf's curse becomes a metaphor for shadow work. The mermaid's tale transforms into a symbol of fluid identity. Your duality isn't a problem to solve, but a landscape to explore. Notice when your Minotaur emerges those moments you feel trapped in old patterns. Instead of fighting it, ask, what is this anger or fear protecting? Like Theseus unraveling the labyrinth, you'll find the core isn't a monster but a wounded part begging for integration. Here's where myths hand you the pen. Write a letter from one side of yourself to another. Let your inner scientist interview your inner poet. Record their conversation. You might discover your logician admires your artist's courage to feel deeply, while your rebel secretly relies on your caretaker's stability. This isn't navel-gazing, it's alchemy. The Green Man teaches that decay feeds new growth. Your contradictions can compost into wisdom. As we near the end of this journey, consider how often myths reward those who embrace hybridity. Quetzalcoatl doesn't choose between serpent and bird, he soars because of both. The cyborg isn't weakened by its fusion but enhanced. Your dualities aren't cracks in your foundation. They're the fault lines where magic seeps through, so next time you feel torn, remember, tension isn't a sign of brokenness, it's the friction that lets you spark. From the Thunderbird's storm-wielding wings to the djinn's smoke-curled riddles, these 25 hybrids aren't just relics of ancient imagination, they're living blueprints of the human experience. Every creature we've met whispers the same revelation. Duality isn't a flaw to fix, but a language to learn. The Sphinx's riddles and the Selkie's stolen skin, the Phoenix's ashes and the cyborg's circuitry, they all map the same terrain. The uncharted wilderness where our contradictions collide and, against all odds, create something transcendent. Think of the last time you felt torn between logic and intuition, roots and wings, the person you are and the one you're becoming. That friction isn't a sign you're broken. It's proof you're alive. The Minotaur's labyrinth and the kitsune's masks aren't warnings, they're invitations. What if the parts of yourself you've locked away or labeled too much are actually keys? The werewolf's moon-touched fury might mirror your untapped passion. The mermaid's longing could echo your own hunger for depths unexplored. Even the Chimera's fragmented terror reminds us, our fears lose power when we name them one by one. Here's the alchemy these myths reveal. Integration isn't about silencing one voice to amplify another. It's about letting them harmonize. The Garuda soars because he embraces both eagle and human, just as Quetzalcoatl's serpentine wisdom coils around his avian grace. Your creativity needs your discipline to ground it. Your resilience needs your vulnerability to give it meaning. Like the green man's leaves, you're meant to shed and regrow season after season. So we'll leave you where all great journeys end and begin at the horizon. That shimmering line where sea meets sky isn't a boundary, it's a collaboration. Two worlds forever distinct yet endlessly intertwined, painting the air with light. Every hybrid we've explored lives in that liminal space, and so do you. Now it's your turn. Which of these mythic mirrors reflects your inner landscape? Is it the centaur's struggle between instinct and intellect, the salamander's dance with transformative fire? Drop your answer in the comments, we'll keep this conversation alive. And if these stories have stirred something in you, hit subscribe, because the most fascinating myths aren't the ones we inherit. They're the ones we're living right now, in the wild and wondrous blend of all that you are.